how the wars, how what was going on internationally was going to most likely play itself out. And what we came to the realization that it would mostly, we would mostly likely get to ceasefire with an opportunity for Hamas to leave to a host country. So we'll get to ceasefire in Gaza, and then Hamas will be given an option to leave to a host country. That's basically what came up. And then once the area is cleared of Hamas, then they will start the rebuild of Gaza. And the rebuild of Gaza is a multinational effort. So it's a lot of people that are coming, a lot of different countries will be coming together on the rebuild of Gaza, not just one group, but it was something that was part of a greater trade deal, which was called the Abraham Accords. And it was this idea that the Abrahamic countries would no longer fight, but that they would instead engage in trade and tourism and even a transportation system. So you think about that. If you're building a transportation system and you now have officially peace between United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Jordan, etc., you can then begin to build border communities. And those border communities can also harbor transportation systems. And so if you were to build something like that, it would probably run you about $350 billion in trade annually for all the countries that were involved. So you might want to visit Dubai, but you're living in Gaza. So you would be able to take a train from Gaza to Dubai, or to Amman in Jordan, or to the West Bank, or to Egypt, or as far you could transfer to Saudi Arabia. Anybody that wants to be part of the Abraham Accords would be able to be, excuse me, would be part of this network, this trade, etc. And so that's probably the future of Gaza. And it looks like Donald Trump and the international community developed something pretty similar to what I was seeing going on. So that's kind of exciting. And Putin being taken down is likely to happen before the fall of Iran. Anybody want to talk about why? Why do you guys think that, if you're looking at this just as a mathematical equation, let's assume that the purpose of the trance state, entering into a trance state and doing remote viewing and doing it with research, meditating, trying to use your whole brain, and then using supercomputers. Let's say theoretically you decided to do something like that, or decided to use a really good artificial intelligence model to develop your thesis. And part of your thesis is to try and look at things objectively without any emotion attached to it, to step back and look at the map objectively and say, how do we fix this? And you're going to find yourself and your brain going into directions that you might not normally think your brain is going to. But when you step back and you look at the situation objectively, the economic situation of Russia, how hungry the Middle East is for this peace deal and the money that's going to come from it, when you put yourself in the shoes of Zaid and all these other people that are Trump and Elon Musk and his transportation dreams, right? And the idea that the transportation that they're using could be eco-friendly, right? So they're itching to get this project started on the Middle East. And Gaza is only one aspect, but you would be toppling. There's no room for terrorists. You got to go. You're a terrorist, you can't stay. Not at this party, because this party is dynamic and it's about building infrastructure, transportation, trade, and tourism. So if you're not a part of that, you can't stay in Gaza. That's basically the bottom line. But step 4 is that Putin is likely to be removed. Now, we could have different conversations about how Putin is likely to be removed. This was December 20th, 2023, when this was sent to the IDF. A lot of people were sending stuff. I'm one of several thousand people, by the way. But I think that because people were using mathematics and pure math and trying to look at things as objectively as possible, we all pretty much came to the same conclusion. And then we can sit around and say, hey, it was my idea. It was my idea. When the truth of the matter is, it was just pure math. But so I think that we're going to be seeing Putin removed fairly soon. And so going answer to what Joel is saying, will the world continue to put up with this? Will Trump continue to put up with this? No, because the new kid on the block is the Abraham Accords. The new bright, sparkly object is the Abraham Accords and this peace deal. And so for that reason, there's no reason to keep Putin around. Putin is an obstacle to the cure. Putin is one of the people that probably planned the October 7th massacre in Israel. So for obvious reasons, they don't want him there. Killing him is difficult, though there was a recent attempt on an assassination of Assad, evidently. Somebody attempted to poison him inside Russia, which is probably the biggest fear that Putin has, is that he could be poisoned, but he is being advised to retire, similar to Trump. Trump is also being advised to retire, and that's because Mike Johnson can only hold off the hordes for so long, right? Yeah, so then we get to then Iran goes next. So when there are rumors that the United States and Israel are going to attack Iran, sure, anybody that's in the way of, people need to understand that anybody that is in the way of the rebuild of Gaza and the Abraham Accords, if you're in the way, or if you're an obstacle to cure, then you can't stay. You can't stay. I'm sorry, you gotta go. That's my Miss Lindsay accent. I'm sorry, but if you are not part of this rebuild, then you cannot stay. You have got to go. So that's what's happening. I mean, for me, it's exciting because, you have a pretty good idea. You're right. I did. I knew I was right. By golly, I knew I was right. And it's nice when you start to see it slowly. It took forever, man. From the time that people started sending stuff and saying, I think that this is probably the direction you should go in, to the time that everybody got on the same page, took a while. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. People will definitely have to leave, that's for sure. Has Trump been absent since Tuesday? I thought he just was on the air talking about something. Yeah, he just, Trump warns Hamas of obliteration if it doesn't cede power. So I got to get a tissue. Why do you think Trump is so gung-ho about Gaza? He wants to go to heaven, right? If the doctors are saying you're not doing so good, right? If the doctors are saying, look, buddy, you're not doing so good, then, and you know your time in the White House could be limited and you may not be even able to finish a term because of health challenges. You know the Epstein file is looming. What are you going to be thinking about? You've got Mike Johnson literally trying to keep the door closed so that nobody can get in. Who let the dogs out? Woof, woof, right? Who let the dogs out? So he can't control this, and which means that it's only so long before. Sorry, I have something in my eye. It's only so long before Johnson has to let the dogs out. He's going to have to let the information out about Epstein. It can't go on forever. You know, you can't continue to shut down the government because you don't want people to find out what the guy you're protecting did to little children. So Mike Johnson is in a very bad situation. He either has to give people what they want and hand over the Epstein files, or the government's going to collapse. So he has to open, they're biting for time, right? He has to open Congress, the House, and they have to vote. And that means releasing the Epstein file. So what do? You give the president a week and a half to come up with an alternative plan. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Right? So what are you guys thinking? What do you think is going to happen to this president? Let's see if I can put this on here. Having trouble getting this thing on here. It's really tough to get my phone on here because it jumps so much. Okay. They're tight. I don't know. Is there a trick to putting phones on those things? There's like, is there like a switch to open it? I like tear it like this to shove the phone into the little holder when I record. I think I'm doing something wrong. All right. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and do the MPAS prayer. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Joel, welcome. Sybil is in the house. Welcome. Renee, thank you for being here. Tarot task backwards. Tarot ask backwards. I don't know. Angelina Delgado is in the house. Portland is burning. I don't smell any smoke. I don't know. Oh, good. Renee is in the house. Good to see you. And Terry Gallant, Sue Malix. All right, we'll continue to say hi to everybody as they go along. I know, do people feel, because we've gone over it a lot in the last couple of years, do you feel now that you know what's happening here? Do you feel like, wow, I now know what's going on in Gaza? I now know secrets. Do you feel special? Because ultimately, I want you to feel special. Do you feel special? Who here feels special? Who here feels like, I got a secret. I got a little tiny secret. I know more than the average person. maybe only less than 1% of the population has the information that I have, right? Does that feel good? You know things. You know things because one of the people that was pushing for this rebuild is talking to you about it. Here is something that I proposed, that we build another oasis zone in the Negev. And I reached out to some of the grape growers in the Negev. We have beautiful grape kibbutzes where they grow grapes. And they're always looking for more workers to build those beautiful vineyards in the Negev. You know, we want the desert to bloom again. So many of the people who are in Gaza right now originally come from Beersheba, and Beersheba is next to the Negev. And what's interesting is that this is the history of Abraham's tent. And Abraham was a Bedouin that came originally from Iraq, what is now Iraq, Babylon. There was war and tension, and so he moved to what was Beersheba. And so I thought because they have to demolish a lot of the chemical weapons and stuff in Gaza because of the toxic. It's pretty toxic there, and there's nowhere to live. The whole thing is demolished. There's nowhere to live. Could we build a kibbutz program in the Negev that, and then we looked at, when I did this one, we looked at building a kibbutz, which is awesome. Anyone who's ever spent time in a kibbutz, it's awesome. It's like camp. Anybody go to camp? You get to eat all your meals together in a big room, and you sing camp songs. You sing like, we're the Oasis and we're number one. We're the Oasis. You make up stupid songs about yourself, and we're going to be the best in the world, right? But you learn folk dancing. I mean, kibbutz is awesome, but wouldn't it be great if we had an integrated kibbutz of Gazans and Israelis that grew grapes and other produce? And then you could also get some wine growers in there. What's interesting is we looked at Islamic law. Could we have a partnership with Gazans who are mostly Muslim? And the answer was yes. They have no problem. They would love to work in such an program. As long as they don't make the wine, but handling grape operations, securing the land, growing grapes, growing olives, no problem. And then you'd have a different group of people that manufactured the wine, or some of the grapes would just go out for other things like grape juice or other products. But we worked out the calculation, and you would secure about 75 to 85% of Hamas, which is what we're trying to do now, which would reduce terrorism by 90 to 95% by 2035. And just putting an additional kibbutz with jobs in that area could escalate to 500,000 to 600,000 jobs for both Israelis, Gazans, and Egyptians. And that program alone would generate between 130 and 165 billion in trade. Recommendation based on computers research that we did, approved now. I had somebody helping me, I should say. I had a colleague help me with this. But approved now, IDF starts week 1. They would put in 2.2 to 3.5 billion. You'd bring in 10,000 troops, 1,000 buses to help bus people to the new location. Oasis 1 saves them and secures Israel. Cameras will prove it to the world. So the other thing this was an idea that Elon Musk had, which is to put cameras everywhere so that people can see what day-to-day life is like on a kibbutz. And people will begin to believe in the program when they see that the people themselves are happy. Ultimately, it has to be that from the people, what's interesting is that this is such a socialist idea And I think that's really funny that I've got these right wingers that are wanting to be a part of something which has such strong socialist leanings, which is why I always thought it was going to be the liberals that started doing this. But and what's interesting is that United Arab Emirates will probably pay for a lot of it. Saudi Arabia will probably get involved. UN and also wealthy business people are pledging money to the rebuild, to building the kibbutzim, the oasis zones. And each oasis zone is built differently depending upon the needs or desires of the person. So that's cool. We have an interesting idea for Zone 1. Zone 1 is at the border with Egypt. And one of the things we learned when we were doing geomapping is we learned that different communities have different religious beliefs and different clan leadership. But if you look at Oasis Sinai, that's probably going to open up when we rent from Egypt. If you look at that area, it's extremely religious. They're very conservative. The Bedouins live there. They're often in burqa. So you want to just always be sensitive to the religious and spiritual beliefs of the people that you're working with. So that is why I proposed that they place Bedouin leadership in Oasis Sinai. So if they were building a university of Bedouin studies, a large Bedouin market that people could visit all over the world, that would be the place to go. And in fact, for thousands and thousands of years in Oasis Sinai, there was a Bedouin market that thrived, and the people happily sold their stuff. So under this program, it would become alive again. So we're going back, into the future, into this really exciting. It's exciting to see these types of programs that are going back into the future. I think the weirdest thing for me was that other people were channeling the same idea. That other people came up with the same concepts. That the Prince of Saudi Arabia had come up with the same exact idea. It's like, yeah, I want to bring back the Oasis. I'm building Oasis in Saudi Arabia. And then United Emirates said, well, we want to do the same thing. Excuse me. Well, what if we connect them all the way to Gaza with a trade route that would be like a modern day caravan system? So then what happened was it started coming out that these systems had already been in existence, and they just uncovered a 5,000-year-old walled oasis. But what was interesting about the research is what they discovered about the walled oasis was that it was 6 zones. And so we were reconstructing the same exact construction from 5,000 years ago. A circle, like get around the circle, the powwow, protect everybody. It was a circle of security, and inside the circle was 6 separate zones. A network of oases in the Northwest Arabian Desert. So the thing that blew my mind in this journey to try and figure out, what the hell's going on in this world, is anything real, was that we were channeling something that's already happened. We were channeling. So then the question is, well, that sounds really great. They were protecting the water, and they had 6 zones. War. Tribes, warriors, hoodlums came in and attacked and massacred the people that were overseeing the security. And that is what led to the death of the oasis. And so we know what caused the death of the oasis. The question is, how can we bring the oasis back? That's ultimately the question. So we now know what it looked like, a network of walled oases identified in the Arabian desert. We know why it failed, right? And we know how it was built. Six zones walled. So you're special. Renee is special. The Sybil is special. Devano Christopher, K Travel, who's going to be moving to Newport. Give it till spring. Because you know something that most of the world doesn't know. You've seen the past and you've seen the future, and that makes you pretty special.